For 5,000 years, the Galactic Empire had kept the peace. Its dominion stretched across thousands of star systems, ruling with a steady, unchallenged authority. Dozens of species had flourished under its rule, each granted a place within the Empire's rigid hierarchy. Humanity, a relative newcomer to the interstellar stage, had accepted this peace with cautious optimism. Over the past 3 centuries, they had expanded into the frontier, their worlds thriving under a delicate balance of self-governance and imperial oversight. Then, without warning, the peace shattered. The first attack came in the dead of night, when the sky above the colony of Epsilon Eridani split open with fire. Orbital defense stations were obliterated in seconds, their operators barely registering the energy spikes before they were vaporized. On the surface, families awoke to alarms that screamed of an invasion no one had expected. Imperial warships descended through the atmosphere like falling gods, their weapons carving vast swathes of destruction across cities and farmlands alike. Admiral Elias Grant watched the horror unfold from the bridge of the Valkyrie, his flagship stationed just beyond the system's edge. The distress calls came too fast, overlapping in a cacophony of panic. Civilians pleaded for evacuation. Colonial militia forces shouted fragmented reports of enemy ground forces slaughtering their way through the streets. Then, one by one, the voices fell silent. "This doesn't make sense," murmured Commander Lee Carter, Grant's second-in-command. She stood stiffly beside him, her dark eyes locked on the tactical display that flickered with red. Every one of those crimson markers representing a lost human settlement. Why would the Empire do this? We've honored every treaty, every regulation. Grant had no answer, his hands curled into fists at his sides. The Empire was a machine of order, its laws absolute. Even when dealing with humanity's more rebellious factions, they had always responded with calculated diplomacy. This was something else entirely, ruthless, indiscriminate, and merciless. A new transmission cut through the chaos. The screen shifted to reveal the stern visage of Lord High Marshal Varostel, a member of the Empire's ruling council. His violet-skinned features were impassive, his golden eyes cold. Behind him, the Imperial banner loomed, a symbol of unwavering dominance. "Admiral Grant of the Terran Federation," the Marshal intoned. "By decree of the Galactic Empire, your species has been found in violation of the Accord of Order. Your expansionist tendencies, your refusal to assimilate fully into the Imperial structure, these transgressions can no longer be ignored. The peace you have enjoyed is over. The Terran Federation is hereby designated a rogue entity. Surrender immediately, and you will be spared total annihilation." Grant's breath came slow and controlled, though the fire in his chest threatened to consume him. "You've already started annihilating us," he said evenly. "You expect surrender after this?" Varostel's expression did not change. "A lesson must be taught. A lesson in submission. Your people will either learn, or they will be extinguished." The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. The only sound was the distant hum of the ship's engines, the quiet before the storm. Grant exhaled sharply. "Prepare a response fleet. Full mobilization. I want every available warship ready to launch within the hour." Carter hesitated. "Sir, are we declaring war?" A part of him wanted to deny it, to claim there was still a path to negotiation. But he had seen the images, heard the screams of a colony wiped from existence. The Empire had already made its decision. "They started it," he said grimly. "We're going to finish it." Across the galaxy, the Terran Federation reeled from the news. The President of Earth, Daniel Reyes, addressed the nations of humanity from the ruins of what had once been the United Nations Assembly Hall. His voice carried across every screen, every radio frequency, reaching not just soldiers but civilians, workers, and families who had never before considered themselves part of a war. "The Galactic Empire has shattered the peace we upheld," he declared, standing amid shattered glass and smoldering embers. "They have butchered our people without warning, without reason. They believe we will kneel. They believe we will beg. But they do not understand humanity. They do not understand that when you push us, we push back. Today, we do not cower. Today, we fight. The decision was unanimous. Humanity, fractured no longer, turned its entire industrial might toward war. In the shadows of Luna's shipyards, massive battleships roared to life, their hulls gleaming under artificial suns. Factories once devoted to civilian infrastructure retooled overnight, producing weapons and armor for the countless soldiers answering the call. The United States Marine Corps, the most feared warriors in human history, prepared for a war unlike any they had fought before. On a barren moon orbiting Jupiter, Colonel Jack Merrick surveyed the ranks of newly mobilized Marines. Their armor was heavier now, adapted for the brutality of interstellar combat. Their rifles, sleek and lethal, pulsed with the energy of miniature railgun accelerators. Yet what defined them wasn't the technology. It was a fire in their eyes. The Empire had awakened something it could not control. Merrick turned to his adjutant, a grim-faced veteran named Rodriguez. "They think we're savages," he said, his voice edged with steel. "They think they can break us." Rodriguez spat onto the lunar dust. "Then let's show them what hell looks like." The war had begun. The void of space burned with the fires of war. Humanity had answered the Empire's brutality with something far worse: resolve. Across the stars, the once fractured Terran Federation had become a singular force, its industries restructured for war, its people unified under one cause: vengeance. And leading the charge were the U.S. Marines. Colonel Jack Merrick stood in the drop bay of the Vindicator, clad in battle-scarred armor that reflected the cold, blue light of the distant star. The ship trembled as it exited slipspace, bringing their target into view. Below them stretched the surface of Hades Prime, once a thriving human colony, now a scarred wasteland under Imperial occupation. The Marines were here to take it back. Merrick turned to his squad, 12 warriors, each clad in the same reinforced armor, their helmets sealed, their visors reflecting the flickering lights overhead. Some had fought in planetary conflicts back home. Others had only seen battle simulations. None had ever faced the full might of the Empire before today. "Listen up," Merrick said, his voice steady through the squad comms. "The Empire took this world from us. They butchered civilians, razed cities, and turned our own colony into a staging ground for their war machine. That ends now. We're hitting their command center first, kill their officers, burn their supplies, and show them what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." A single click sounded through the comms, acknowledgement without hesitation. The mission was clear. The countdown began. The drop bay's massive doors yawned open, revealing the battle raging below. Imperial fortifications stretched across the ruined cityscape, their plasma cannons already firing at incoming human warships. Bright streaks of energy lanced through the atmosphere, carving deep gouges into the earth. Drop in 5-4. Merrick clenched his fists, every muscle in his body coiled, anticipation thrumming through his veins. 3-2. Then the floor beneath him vanished. The Marines plummeted through the stratosphere like falling meteors, their drop pods cutting through the clouds at blistering speed. The wind screamed past and then impact. The pod's doors blasted open, and Merrick surged forward, weapon raised. The city was a war zone. Buildings lay in ruins, the streets littered with Imperial patrols scrambling to respond. The Marines moved like ghosts through the rubble, their advanced armor allowing them to maneuver through the battlefield with lethal efficiency. An Imperial officer turned, eyes widening as he spotted them. He didn't have time to shout a warning before Merrick's rifle punched a round through his chest, the hypervelocity slug tearing through his armor like wet paper. His body crumpled before the alien soldiers around him even realized they were under attack. "Push forward," Merrick barked, his squad advancing with ruthless precision. Gunfire erupted, bright flashes of plasma streaking through the air. The Empire's soldiers, tall and sinewy with chitinous armor plating, fought with the discipline of a species that had never known defeat. But they had never fought humans like this. Sergeant Rodriguez took point, his heavy repeater spitting tungsten slugs that shredded Imperial defenses in seconds. To his right, Corporal Vasquez vaulted over a collapsed transport, his blade flashing as he cut through an enemy soldier's throat. The Marines didn't just fight. They hunted, adapting to the battlefield with an aggression that the Empire had never encountered. An explosion rocked the ground as an enemy walker stomped into view, its twin cannons swiveling toward the advancing humans. Merrick barely had time to shout before the first shot roared through the battlefield, sending a fireball into the sky. Cover! The Marines scattered as debris rained down. Merrick gritted his teeth. They had no heavy ordnance for this. No artillery support. Just grit and ingenuity. Rodriguez, take your team, flank left. Vasquez, you're with me. We take that thing down now. No arguments. Just movement. The Marines split into two groups, darting through the wreckage as plasma fire chased them. The Walker's targeting system struggled to keep up, its cannons recalibrating with agonizing slowness. That was its mistake. Rodriguez's team hit first, launching grenades that shattered one of the Walker's stabilizers. The massive machine stumbled, its knee joint locking up as sparks erupted from exposed circuitry. That was all the opening Merrick needed. He sprinted forward, Vasquez right beside him. With a single leap, they landed atop the Walker's armored hull. Merrick drove his combat knife into the maintenance hatch, pried it open, and lobbed an incendiary charge inside. Fire in the hole. They leapt clear just as the charge detonated. The Walker convulsed, its servos shrieking in protest before the entire structure collapsed. A pillar of flame shot into the sky. The battlefield stilled for a heartbeat. Then the Imperial forces faltered. They had expected an easy occupation, not an unstoppable counterattack. Push. Drive them out. Merrick's voice carried across the comms, and the Marines surged forward. The battle didn't last much longer. Imperial forces, disoriented and leaderless, began to retreat. Some fought to the bitter end, but most broke under the unrelenting onslaught. When the last shot faded, the Marines stood in the ruins of what had once been a human city. The victory was theirs. Merrick exhaled, scanning the battlefield. His squad was battered but alive. They had sent a message tonight, one the Empire would not soon forget. Rodriguez stepped up beside him, reloading his rifle with practiced ease. That was one hell of a fight. Merrick nodded, and it's just the beginning. The sky over Earth burned. From orbit, the once proud capital of the Terran Federation lay in ruin, its towering spires reduced to molten slag, its streets choked with fire and ash. Smoke curled into the upper atmosphere, the dying breath of a world caught in the grip of annihilation. The Empire had not come to conquer. They had come to erase. Admiral Elias Grant stood aboard the Valkyrie, his knuckles white against the command console as the holographic display flickered with one red marker after another. Lost ships, fallen cities, entire divisions wiped from existence. The fleet had fought desperately to hold Earth's orbit, but the Empire's onslaught had been relentless. Their warships, sleek and monstrous, had carved through human defenses like blades through flesh. The orbital stations were gone. The home fleet was scattered. Earth, the beating heart of humanity, was falling. Sir, Commander Lee Carter's voice was hoarse with exhaustion. The President is gone. The command bunker in Geneva was hit 5 minutes ago. We've lost all contact. Grant closed his eyes. He had known this moment would come. From the instant the Empire had retaliated against humanity's defiance, this end had been written in blood. But knowing did not soften the weight pressing against his chest. Casualties? His voice was steady, but only just. Carter hesitated. 70% of the planetary population is unaccounted for. 70%. 1 billion souls, gone in a matter of hours. And it wasn't over. A new alarm blared across the bridge. Grant turned just in time to see the tactical display shift. A new wave of enemy ships emerging from slip space, their trajectories locked onto Mars. The last stronghold. The last hope. They're not stopping, Carter whispered. No, Grant said. They won't stop until there's nothing left. Far below, on the red sands of Mars, Colonel Jack Merrick stood with what remained of his Marines. The air was thin, the artificial atmosphere of Olympus Mons base struggling to hold after repeated bombardments. Cracks webbed across the domed shield overhead, and beyond it, the Imperial fleet loomed like carrion birds over a dying beast. Merrick adjusted the grip on his rifle, scanning the horizon. The enemy was coming. He could see the dust rising in the distance, the shimmering heat signatures of Imperial war machines advancing over the dunes. The Marines had no reinforcements, no escape routes. They were the last line of defense between the Empire and the final remnants of humanity. Sergeant Rodriguez crouched beside him, his armor scorched and dented, his breathing heavy. Hell of a way to go, Colonel. Merrick smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. We're not dead yet. Rodriguez chuckled dryly. Give it an hour. A sharp beep sounded in Merrick's helmet, an incoming transmission. He tapped his wrist console, and Admiral Grant's voice filled his ears. Merrick, listen carefully. We have one last shot at turning this around. Merrick didn't ask how. There was no room for doubt. What do you need? Grant's voice was grim. Intel from our operatives suggests the Empire's entire war machine is coordinated through a centralized AI core on their homeworld. If we take it out, their fleets, their ground forces, their entire chain of command collapses. They'll be blind. Merrick exhaled slowly. A suicide mission, deep into the heart of enemy territory, against impossible odds. He had expected nothing less. When do we leave? Now. Within the hour, a single stealth ship, the Black Spear, slipped through the chaos, breaking free of the Sol system under the cover of debris and dying stars. Aboard it, Merrick and a hand-picked team of the deadliest Marines humanity had left prepared for what would be their final mission. Rodriguez sat across from him in the dimly lit cargo hold, checking his weapons with methodical precision. You really think this will work? Merrick met his gaze. Doesn't matter. It has to. Rodriguez grunted. Fair enough. The ship jolted as it entered slipspace. The next stop, the Imperial homeworld. The mission was simple. Infiltrate. Destroy the AI core. Cripple the Empire. Failure was not an option. Humanity had no more ground left to lose. The Black Spear drifted like a shadow through the void, slipping past Imperial patrols and automated defenses that had never known failure. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled with absolute control, its war machine a force of terrifying precision. But no system, no matter how vast, was infallible. Humanity had learned that the hard way. Now, it was the Empire's turn. Colonel Jack Merrick stood at the ship's viewport, watching as their destination grew larger. The Imperial homeworld of Varen Prime. Its surface shimmered with golden cities and towering citadels, a world untouched by war for over 10,000 years. That would change tonight. Rodriguez stepped up beside him, checking the seals on his combat suit. Hard to believe this place is where all the nightmares come from. Merrick didn't take his eyes off the planet. Not for much longer. The plan was simple in theory, impossible in execution. The Empire's vast armada operated under the guidance of a centralized AI core buried deep beneath the Imperial citadel. Destroy it, and the entire war machine would collapse. Fleets drifting without command, armies severed from their orders. It would turn their greatest strength into their greatest weakness. The Black Spear skimmed the upper atmosphere, undetected by the planetary defense grid. It settled into the darkness beyond the capital, its stealth plating blending with the night. No alarms, no pursuit. The Empire did not expect an enemy here. Merrick and his team moved fast, cutting through the dense cityscape like phantoms. The streets of Varen Prime were eerily quiet, its citizens blissfully unaware that war had come to their doorstep. Every turn brought them closer to the citadel, its obsidian walls rising like a monolith against the skyline. Guards patrolled its perimeter, but they were unprepared for the brutality that followed. A single silenced shot, a body crumpling into the shadows. The Marines advanced ruthless and efficient. Each kill brought them closer. Each moment pushed them deeper into the beast's heart. They breached the outer wall, slipping through security layers designed to repel armies, not a handful of warriors with nothing left to lose. Beneath the citadel, the AI core awaited, a towering construct of pulsing energy and endless calculations, its synthetic mind orchestrating the slaughter of an entire species. Rodriguez set the charges, his hands steady despite the weight of history pressing against them. Merrick activated his calm, charges set. Extraction ready. Silence. Then a voice crackled through, Admiral Grant. But something was wrong. His words were ragged, urgent. The Empire knows. They're coming. Merrick's jaw clenched. No turning back now. How long do we have? A pause. Then, not long enough, the first explosion ripped through the chamber, sending shards of synthetic crystal spiraling through the air. The AI core flickered, its vast intelligence unraveling. Systems failed. Control lines severed. Across the Empire, warships suddenly drifted, their once coordinated formations turning into chaos. But the enemy was here. The citadel erupted with alarms as Imperial guards stormed in, their weapons blazing. The Marines fought like demons, holding the line as the detonators counted down. Rodriguez took a hit to the shoulder but stayed standing, gritting his teeth against the pain. This better be worth it. Merrick fired into the oncoming wave, each shot precise, each movement deliberate. It will be. The final charge detonated. The AI core collapsing on itself, a catastrophic cascade of failures rippling through every Imperial system. Across the galaxy, warships lost guidance, planetary defenses fell silent, and entire battalions of enemy soldiers found themselves leaderless. The machine that had enslaved the stars for millennia was gone, but victory had a price. The extraction ship never made it. The city was in chaos, but Imperial forces still controlled the skies. There would be no escape. Rodriguez leaned against the shattered remains of a console, blood seeping through his armor. Well, he said, coughing, at least we didn't die for nothing. Merrick looked out over the burning city, watching as the Empire unraveled before his eyes. Humanity had done the impossible. They had brought gods to their knees. He exhaled, his grip tightening on his weapon. They had won the war. Now, they just had to survive the night.